Jonathan is from Switzerland, but he is currently studying drums in the UK. Shout out to my UK drummers out there. And his question is pretty simple. He's saying, first of all, thanks for your videos. I love the content you make and definitely think that your work deserves more views. Me too, man, but what are you going to do? Basically, he's just asking, what is pocket? What is playing in the pocket, and how do you practice and do it? Pocket, man, it's always been a tough question to answer for me, because pocket is not necessarily a technical thing. It's more of a feeling for me. And it's always been really kind of tough to describe pocket. My best description of what it is basically is just when a groove just sort of sits in this bed and just feels really, really good. It feels good to listen to, feels good for other musicians to play along with. Everything about it just feels good. It's easy. And it's really just that sort of perfect balance between sounding tight and sounding loose at the same time. You know what I mean? That perfect mix between mechanically perfect and, humanly perfect at the same time. And like I said, it's just really, it's a tough thing to describe. It's like asking Dave Chappelle, what is funny? You know what I mean? Like if you ask a guy like that, what's funny? It's for me, it's the same thing. It's like some dudes are funny, some guys just ain't funny. And it's the same thing with pocket. Great examples of that. Like most of the drummers out there that have great pocket, you can completely tell that it's them from 50 yards away, right? Keith Carlock, Steve Jordan, Steve Gadd, Benny Greb. Benny Greb has a ridiculous pocket. There's a lot of drummers out there with really great pocket, and you can tell that it's them as soon as you hear them. So the only thing that I can really do for you is just give you sort of the mechanical foundation for what pocket is. Now, I'm fortunate enough to sort of have a rep on the streets for having a pretty decent pocket. And the mechanical approach, really, to what I do. Every single song out there that you play, rock, pop, jazz, hip hop, R&B, soul, whatever, like whatever it is, there's a rhythmic sort of foundation to every song out there. So a lot of rock music based on 8 notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and dance music, house music, 16 notes, that kind of thing, right? Jazz, hip hop, blues, it's triplet bass. So a great sort of technical approach to playing pocket. Recognize what the rhythmic foundation is for that song and just stay right there. Stay in that pocket while you're playing. And you can bump it up to the next subdivision to play your fills or whatever. But, if a song is just, for a simple example again, just a basic pop tune with an 8th note feel. 1, 2, 3, I will stay in that lane pretty much for the whole song. And if I feel like branching out a little bit, play a 16th note fill or whatever inside of that, I can do that. But as far as how it feels, that all comes from in here. It's just my personality. Like I've always been a funky dude. Sounds like it's a bit of a douchebag thing to say, but hopefully it didn't come across too arrogant. But I've always been very comfortable playing the drums. And my feel is not anything that I worked on. It was just really just kind of natural. But years later, you know, when I was analyzing what I was doing so I could sort of somewhat teach it to other people, that's kind of what I discovered, is that you figure out the rhythmic foundation for that song and just stay there. That will prevent you from overplaying all the time, because there's nothing more annoying than somebody playing a bunch of 30-second note licks in a basic 8-note feel song. So a good way to practice this on your drums, I guess, would be to just turn on your click, set it to 8 notes or something, and just start playing a groove. Boom, gat, boom, gat, boom, gat. And then you really just have to focus on laying back on the click just a little bit. So instead of playing right on it, you know what I mean? Just sort of take the mechanical aspect of it out. Don't stop being concerned about playing perfectly on the beat every single time, and just loosen up. Loosen everything up and lay back on it a little bit. Play that same groove, you know what I mean? And then just lay back and practice just playing slightly behind the click. And that's a good way to sort of start getting you to loosen up a little bit, improve your pocket, you know, a little bit. And then just do that, you know, just try to do that as often as you can. Even better, do it at slow tempos, and try it for all types of grooves. Try it for shuffles, especially shuffles, straight grooves, 16th type grooves, like all of that kind of stuff. Just practice, you know, plant yourself on that click and then just lay back on it just a tiny bit, loosen it up. And like I said, that's more of the sort of mechanical approach to doing it. But like I said, man, if you got good pocket, you're going to find out. And if you don't, you're going to find out. So the thing about funny people, man, is that they don't practice being funny. They're just funny to begin with, right? So it's the same thing with drummers that have great feel. So if you have great feel, you continue to play your drums, you know, work on this sort of pocket thing. And I mean, if you got great feel, man, you'll know. And other people will let you know. It's not anything that you're going to necessarily have to work at. It's just going to be there. So, you know, hopefully that helps. I don't know if it did or not, but that's the whole thing about pocket. Emilien, I think I'm saying that right. Emilien is from France. And he's got a question about elbow pain. And he's saying here, I'm just going to sort of jump to the last bit of it here. I recently started having pain in my left elbow, which I identified as being the golf elbow pain. After several days of investigation, I found out that I might have bad stroke movement from the left hand due to bad habits. Not good. Could you please detail slowly from any angle how you perform a wrist stroke from the left and right hand? This would help me try to correct my movement and avoid this pain again. Yeah, I did actually have that same type of pain before. If you go back to some of my videos from maybe a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, you might have seen me wearing this thing. And I started wearing this because I had the same issue, except I developed mine in the gym. I was lifting, I guess, a little bit too heavy too soon at the time, and I developed this sort of pain in my elbow. So now let me just start out first of all by saying I'm not a doctor. All right, if you're suffering from any kind of elbow pain, go see your doctor, and don't rely on this video. But as far as my situation went, one thing I did is I went out and I bought this. I just went out to my local drugstore. Shoppers Drug Mart is our thing. If you live in Canada, you know that. And inside of it is this sort of hard rubber little piece. And what this does is that you put it on, you slip it on your arm like that, and it kind of, that little rubber piece that's inside here sits on the muscle and somehow it just kind of relieves the pain from the elbow. So if you go back to some of my earlier videos, you'll see me wearing this thing. That's because I found that when I did wear this, it kind of alleviated the pain while I was playing. It just really didn't hurt that much at all. So regardless of how you got it, the pain is still the same. Golfer's elbow is golfer's elbow, and it's the same type of pain. So if you're thinking it's from bad stroke movement, there's a simple way to sort of fix that part of it. When I play the drums using a match grip, which is by far my most comfortable grip. I've been using the traditional a lot more recently, but match grip is just, I mean, it's super, super easy for me these days, and it's really comfortable. And I was watching myself on video a few times, just kind of checking out my movements and stuff. And I just kind of noticed that, you know, when I'm playing, I really play from here. This is kind of where everything happens. My arms are really close to my body. My elbows are tucked in. And I just sort of get this T-Rex action going on from right here. So my hands almost feel completely disconnected from my forearms. And I can really comfortably just kind of flop them around like that. And when I'm playing the drums, especially when I'm grooving, you know, it's all happening from right here. A really good way to sort of get used to the feel of doing this. And you've heard the comparison a million times, and it's only because it's the most accurate one. But you can literally go out and just grab a tennis ball, rubber ball, or whatever, and sit in front of a snare drum with a practice pad on it. You know, like not a gel one, but a nice solid rubber one, like a Vic Firth pad or something like that. And you take a ball and just sort of play catch with the ball right on top of the snare. This exact same movement is the wrist stroke when you're holding the stick. It's the exact same thing, man, with both hands. You know what I mean? Like if you want to just take that ball and bounce it from hand to hand, you see what's happening here? This is exactly how I play. My hi-hat and my snare, it's all happening from right there. And I think that has a lot to do with how smooth I sound. There is zero effort when I'm using a match grip. I almost don't even feel the sticks in my hands. It's that comfortable. So as far as movement with the wrist, that's the best way to approach it. It's the exact same as the tennis ball thing. You're not going to chuck a tennis ball down like this. You know what I mean? You're not going to use your whole arm to do it. You're not going to get any success that way. You're not going to do it from up here. It all happens from here, right? So, you know, like I said, my wrist almost kind of feels disconnected from my arms completely. And I can throw them around as much as I want, like this. No pain whatsoever, doesn't hurt. And when I'm playing, it's the same approach. If you got a nice loose grip of the stick, it's going to feel exactly the same. So that's why playing match grip for me is just like I can't even really describe to you how easy it feels. So much so that it's been really tempting to just go right back to that because that's my comfort zone. But if I'm going to get used to this traditional grip, I gotta stay away from that. So, anyways, hopefully that helped you out. That's really the only accurate answer I can give you. You really just have to try that. Get yourself a rubber ball or a tennis ball or something and bounce it. Bounce it a bunch of times on top of a snare drum. Bounce it back and forth between both hands. Same thing when you're holding the sticks, and that's basically your wrist movement. JB is from Orlando, Florida. He's in his 60s, and he just has a question about mounting toms on your bass drum. So yeah, he's just mentioning here, you know, some people say it's blasphemous and ruins the sound of your kick. Others say it don't matter. I see you have your toms mounted on your kick drum. So it would seem you fall into those people that think it doesn't do any harm. I recently added a mount to my kick to hang my toms to save space, weight, and time, and setting up for gigs. So far, I can't tell any difference, and my kick, which in his case is a DW Collector's Maple, seems every bit as chest thumping as it always has. Can you run down the pros and cons? JB from sunny Florida. You answered your own question, man. Dudes that complain or try to convince you that mounting your toms off your stands makes any kind of audible difference, at least any kind of difference that matters, are just way too into it. Nobody loves drums more than me. I can tell you that right now. But I also know that drummers love, for whatever reason, to believe that this thing is complicated, and it's not. There's nothing complicated about drums, man. There's a lot of science and technology and precision that goes into making a drum, but by the time it gets to our house, we hit it with a stick. Toms have been mounted off of bass drums since the dawn of time. And some of the greatest sounding kits you've ever heard have toms mounted on the bass drum. It really doesn't make that much of a difference at all, really. If your kid is on the stage and is tuned up nice and is mic'd well, no audience member is going to know or care whether your tom is hanging off a stand or whether it's mounted on the bass drum. So as far as pros and cons, yeah, I'm one of those dudes that prefers to have the toms mounted on the bass drum. For me, it's purely just convenience. It's just a lot easier for me to get my toms where I want them to sit when they're sitting off the bass drum. I've played kits before where they've been mounted off of stands, and sometimes it's just kind of, it takes a little bit more work to get these toms in the same position when one's hanging off this stand and the other one's hanging off of this stand, because now you got to worry about the angle of the drum. You got to worry about the legs on the cymbal stand that you're mounting them off. You got to make sure they're positioned first in such a way that they're not obstructing anything. And now you got to move them close enough, and you got to set them exact to the same thing. I mean, I'm too picky, far too picky, to want to worry about any of that crap. So I just mount them right off my kick drum. My Yamaha tom mount is all locked into place. So all I got to do is plop it on there. The arms are in position, put my toms on, good to go. It's not going to affect the sound of your bass drum at all. The biggest argument, I guess, is that because of all that weight that's on the shell, it might affect how it sounds. But the thing is, man, you have no clue how strong these bass drums are. I mean, you can get a 200-pound guy to stand on top of this thing, and it's not going to cave in. Like these things can hold a lot of weight. So as far as it affecting the sound, it's not going to do anything. So yeah, man, I mean, that's just my 2 cents. You know what I mean? Do whatever you want. Mount them off your kick, mount them off your stands. Doesn't make any difference. If you know how to tune your drums, you know how to hit your drums, your kick is going to sound awesome, your toms are going to sound awesome, and everybody's happy. Thanks for all your questions. Send them to askbeatdown@gmail.com. Try to do this once a week. Like, subscribe. See you next video.